I think we've recently seen something that could indicate that Picoin might actually be shaping up or kind of ramping up for a Binance listing. Really, really interesting. And I think this actually could have been why the price went down. So I wanted to kind of go over this with you guys today. Let me know your thoughts. Obviously, like, subscribe, all that type of fun stuff. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If do you think I'm on track? Do you think I'm off track? What do you think is going on here? But I do think we're seeing some potential speculation as to why we could be potentially looking at a Binance listing here soon. So before we do that though, we're going to go on, we're going to check out the crypto bubbles. We can see Pi actually down 13% today. A lot of this is on the back of some of that major selling pressure we saw a little bit earlier. You can see here gapping down from about 177 all the way down to about 164. So really, really big move in a very short period of time. I want to talk a little bit about this because I do think that this could potentially be kind of ramping us up for a Binance listing. You might think, well, price goes down for a Binance listing? That makes no sense. Why? We're going to get into that. But what we can see if we look at kind of the wicks here, we can see exactly that, right? So let's go on. We'll zoom in here specifically. We can see this is the 1 hour chart. So in 1 hour, we saw a move from about 178 almost down to about 152, 153. And then we ended up closing at about 166. So a massive volatility hour right here. We can see Pi actually going from in the week, not quite oversold, but to way oversold down here at about 20, and then coming back in and then coming right back down here. So obviously a bunch of selling pressure that we are seeing for Pi recently. If you do look at the Bollinger Bands, I talk about this a lot on the channel. Bollinger Bands are kind of usually a good way to not necessarily predict this, but it's usually a very strong indicator. You can see Bollinger Bands very wide, kind of squeeze down a little bit, very wide, squeeze down, squeeze down, squeeze down, super tight in this range. And then we can see the bottom falls out. Usually what happens when you see Bollinger Bands squeeze this tight is there's about to be a period of very, very strong volatility. We don't know which direction, could be up, could be down, we never know. But one thing that I've actually been toying with over the past little while is the thought of potentially kind of doing, I think in options trading, they call this the iron condor strategy, but it's essentially taking both a long, very, very high leverage, long and short in the same kind of position here, and essentially waiting for one direction or the other, right? You basically set the stop loss, let's say it, kind of, I don't know, maybe kind of outside of each of this candle, or maybe even outside of the Bollinger Bands on each side, right? If it goes up, obviously you're going to make a ton of money. If it goes down, obviously you're going to make a ton of money. You will lose kind of half of that position, but depending on, like, essentially you might lose, let's say 70% going on when it breaks to the downside. But you're probably going to be making 2, 3, 4, 500%, especially if you're setting take profits all along this way down. So that is kind of a strategy that you could potentially use if you are looking to trade Pi. This is, as you can see, this is on BTCC. I do trade on BTCC a decent bit. You can see I've got a couple of trades open here. All of these down a little bit. Some of these were actually way, way before some of like the crypto announcement. They've just been open for a while. I trade on low leverage for this reason. They can kind of go down quite a ways, and it's just not the end of the world. We'll just kind of let these ride. I'm confident that at some period, at some point in time, this will come back up. When, who knows, but I'm just kind of letting them ride for now. If you are interested in trading, I do have that 10% bonus on first time deposits. Really, really good deal. Basically, it's free money. So if you deposit, let's say $5,000, you get $500 for free to trade, which is really cool. Also, $10,055 bonus per user, and then no VPN or KYC necessary. So a lot of really, really great value here if you are looking to trade. Going back to the pie chart, we can see even still right now, we're basically sitting almost in oversold. So I do think, the fact that we are kind of sitting at almost oversold probably means we're going to have a little bit of a recovery here. As we can see also, usually when things kind of pull outside of the Bollinger Bands, it's almost certain that we're going to pull back in. You can see we're kind of running along the bottom of this Bollinger Band for quite some time, and now we've kind of pulled back up into it, which is really good to see. Obviously, who knows where we'll be when we have some sort of recovery, but I want to go, and as you can see this arrow, this is the wick that I'm talking about, and we can see here there's actually a post on Twitter that talks a little bit as to why we could actually be seeing this. Dr. Altcoin is essentially created a little bit of a post on why there's such a sudden pie drop. I'll actually like and I will repost this. You can check my Twitter in the description below if you are interested in kind of reading a little bit more about this specifically. We are going to go over it in somewhat detail here. You can see, according to PieScan, the Pi core team PCT wallet outflows show 89.7 million Pi moved out, and then on March 8th, 36.4 million Pi moved out. These significant transactions align with Pi's price drop, suggesting a possible sell-off by the PCT. Now, we'll pause right here, try not to read along, but what we'll see is why would this be happening, right? You're thinking, oh my gosh, the Pi core team, they're selling, this is terrible, they're dumping, the project's done, they're rugging the project, all that type of stuff, right? Potentially wrong, right? And so this is what we want to talk about here, is because Binance recent post hinted that Pi is in the task phase, potentially a requirement for its listing, possibly linked to the rumored $50 million listing fee. Now, this is true. Binance charges a very, very, very steep fee to get listed on Binance, but this is kind of like their wall that crypto projects have to get over, of like, if you can afford a $50 million listing fee, you're probably pretty legit. And so I think that that's kind of how they're kind of assessing this type of thing, right? And so if true, the sell-off could have been to fund this fee. Now, we have to keep in mind that PiCoin was kind of like a fair drop, so there was no kind of like VC things involved, at least from what I understand. I'm still trying to get a little bit of a better grasp on the specific tokenomics and the mechanics of PiCoin specifically. But what we can see is like there's no real backing to this where somebody could essentially just come out and like rip off like a $50 million listing fee. And so the fact that the Pi team is actually kind of having to sell off some of their supply into the market to actually fund this fee, I think that kind of makes a lot of sense, right? And so while it may seem kind of bearish on the surface, I actually think if this is what it's really kind of for, this is going to be very, very bullish. And I think people are going to be very, very happy when we see a Binance listing. So we could see dreams come true, but only if you've survived the task stage. So this is kind of where we're at, is, everybody's here, and then, about half are here, and then only about a select few are here. I do think, given kind of all of the things that we have seen recently with PiCoin, this makes a lot of sense, right? Like, it would make sense to me that PiCoin is in this final stage. There's a lot of volume. There's a lot of interest. Everybody's talking about Pi right now. Pi is a really exciting project for a lot of really interesting reasons. And so it would make sense to me that Binance would want the volume and the fees associated with that volume trading on their exchange. I mean, Pi is doing a ridiculous amount of money in trading volume every day, and they're not even listed on a major exchange. And so I think that having kind of this extra visibility and accessibility by being listed on Binance would be a really huge thing. And so what we can also see here is these are the Pi core team wallets. We can see the outflows here, Bitget, OKX, MEXC, Gato. All we can see, they actually are selling a lot of this stuff off to try and potentially fund that $50 million Binance listing fee. So that is some pretty interesting news there. And I want to kind of go over that today, just to kind of, let you know kind of what we're seeing. Obviously, it always feels a little bit bad when we see the price drop. But when we see the price drop for this type of situation or for this type of reason, that's obviously, I would say, not necessarily a bad thing at all. And so I just want to kind of present that to you guys today. Hopefully you guys are, feeling okay, even though we have seen a pretty decent drop with the PiCoin chart today. But again, sometimes we need to kind of zoom out, take a little bit of a bigger look at the bigger picture, a lot of that type of stuff. Also, I do want to kind of throw in a quick little tidbit from what I was talking about earlier on a live stream that I did today, is I want to talk a little bit about how can you handle trading PiCoin specifically or potentially most effectively. I know that PiCoin's really exciting, and I think part of the reason that PiCoin has been really exciting is because this has kind of brought in a whole new crowd because of the kind of ease of accessibility with mining Pi through your phone and a lot of that type of stuff. I think it's been really exciting for a lot of people, and it's brought in a kind of a whole new different type of investor that we haven't actually seen previously, which is a really, really good thing. But the caveat there is sometimes with new investors, they don't really kind of understand. They may not understand kind of the lay of the land with crypto, a lot of that type of stuff. So I did just want to give like super quick PSA of how I have, at least in the past, made some mistakes, lost some money, and hopefully to prevent you from doing the same. And so we're going to look at the pie chart here, just so you can kind of see what's going on and how I would potentially look at this. So let's actually move out to 1 day, just so we can see. Obviously, you know, pie chart or pie coin has not been listed for very long, but we can kind of see what we're doing here. So the reason that I want to kind of show this is because I used to think, when I was kind of a very new trader and investor in crypto, I was all or nothing, right? So for example, I would maybe be investing right here and I would go in 100% of the way, right? And then I would sell. Let's just say I sold here because I thought this was the top. Whoops. I have to put that right there. I'm going to sell exactly at like this point right there because I thought that was the top. Now I'm fully out, right? Well, this whole time I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Why did I sell? I sold everything and it's just gone up, you know, maybe another 50%. This is terrible. So then I revenge trade, and then maybe I go and I buy all of my position back in. I've just lost all of this. I bought it back in here, and now price starts to drop, right? And you're like, ah, man, now price is dropping. I was right to sell all along here. Let me just sell all my, like, everything out back here because obviously price is going down. Okay, well, now I've just lost this and I've lost this. So really, really bad trading overall. And then let's say, you know, we get to the point here and we say, oh, this is great, and now I'm going to buy all the way back in here. If any of you are like me and you're kind of just getting into investing, and a lot of this, you're kind of new to this type of game, this is a type of thing that can really actually wreck you and hurt you pretty badly. And so what I would posit is, instead of doing this type of thing, particularly if you had a bunch of Picoin mined previous to the TGE, what I would say is kind of sell off on the pumps. You don't feel like, obviously, you know, none of this is, I guess I should have prefaced with all this, none of this is financial advice. You obviously need to make your own decisions. These are just my opinions. This is not sanctioned by anybody or whatever. This is just my opinions on how I have personally learned the hard way on some of this type of stuff, and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So obviously, you know, if they're useful to you, take it for what it's worth. Otherwise, you know, you can just continue along it and do whatever you prefer. But I also will tell you that I have lost far more money from greed than to fear. And what that means is essentially I lose more money not selling here because I think it's going to 10x, right? So what you need to do, particularly if you are somebody who has made a ton of money from mining the Pi token, just take some profits along the way up, right? I'm not saying sell out 100% right here. What I'm saying is, you know, maybe you sell, you know, 5% here, maybe you sell 10% here, maybe you sell another 10% here, right? You still may have 60, 70, 80% of your whole bag because you believe that it can go to 5 or 10 or 15 or $20, whatever it might be. But then when you see something like this happen, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I do believe it can go to, you know, 5, 10, 15, $20. Well, that 30% that you just sold out of, well, maybe you buy a little bit here. Maybe you buy a little bit here. Maybe you buy a little bit more here, right? You can buy it down on the way down, and then when it starts to go back up, you can sell chunks along the way up. And so this is something that I think it took me longer than it probably should have to kind of understand how that works and some of the mechanics of that. But it's really helped me as a crypto investor to kind of learn, like, you don't have to do everything in absolutes, right? You can sell 10% here, you can buy 10% there, you can sell 20% here, you can buy 10% there. That's something that, like, overall, if you're doing it correctly, it can bring your average down, but it will also, more importantly, prevent you from feeling the FOMO or feeling any of that type of stuff. You just know you're never going to time the top, you're never going to time the bottom exactly. So just feels like a good price, buy a bit here. Feels like a good price here, buy a bit there, right? And moving back to the hourly chart, and we're going to kind of take a closer look at this, but what we can see here is, you know, up at this range, we were over here at the overbought on RSI, and we could also see we're pushing outside of the Bollinger Bands. Maybe take profits here, not because you don't think it can go to $5 or $10 or whatever, but it's at this point in time showing that the chart is looking overbought. Let's say you take 10% off the table at this point. You still have 90% of your position in, remember, but then when you come back to this place and we can see that the chart is now showing oversold. We're on the bottom end of things. We're overextended out of the Bollinger Bands in some of these places. Now you can go take the 10% that you sold here at close to $2 and you can go buy back in here at about $1.50. You're essentially increasing your position size by 25% for free. You're literally just paying attention, you're trading the coin, you're believing in the coin, and you're still keeping most of your position intact. This is something, like I said, it took me a really long time to learn. It probably took me longer than it should have, but it's been massively helpful for me. So again, this is just something that you can think about. Obviously, it's not financial advice. You need to make your own decisions there. This is just something that I've kind of learned and kind of figured out a little bit the hard way myself over time. And so I want to share that with you. Hopefully it helps you out a little bit. If it doesn't, obviously, you can continue working through whatever strategy that you have. All I would say is that working in absolutes, at least personally, has usually never been a really great strategy for me. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, concerns, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section. I do try to read and respond to all of those. I really appreciate all of your guys' comments. A lot of you leave really, really good and interesting comments that I love responding to and interacting with. So if you would, just drop those in the comment section below and I'll be getting back to you. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in and we'll see you in the next one.